Hello everyone and welcome to this short talk on OpenLayers, the open source option of adding maps on websites. Nowadays, every single business is relying on location data one way or another. Let it be to market their product, let it be to do analytics based on their customers, or even to simplify the supply chain management. Location data is becoming critical for each and every industry. And as a normal developer, we need to now have some sort of understanding of different types of data sets as well as the nomenclature in this particular industry. We are talking about GIS industry. GIS stands for Geographical Information System. In this particular talk, we are actually going to focus more on the front end part or the client side part of this industry. That is to get the data from backend, let it be from API or directly from database or any other third party service, and visualize it on the front end. But with the advancement in these JavaScript libraries, it is not just visualization anymore. We can do all sort of things such as visualize different types of data using different methodologies, do some analytics on the fly, and of course add interactions such as click, hover, and things like that. In this short talk, I will introduce you to a JavaScript library, OpenLayers. I have talked with hundreds of developers, and for most of the people who are not from this industry, Google Maps or Mapbox is a direct way to integrate mapping in their current application. But I am here to change that opinion. Sure, Google Maps has tons of data. It has data across all world. But at the same time, from a pricing point of view, for a startup or for a small business, it's not always possible to use something like Google Maps. That is exactly where open source solutions such as OpenLayers or Leaflet comes into the picture. In this video, we are going to have an introduction to OpenLayers. So let me head to the browser and quickly spin up openlayers.org. Here you can see that we are currently on version 7.1.0. In the past year, lot of websites are moving from simple vanilla JavaScript to using JavaScript frameworks like React, Angular, Svelte, Vue, things like that. And that is why from past couple of years, OpenLayers is also working on its own NPM package. In this video, I'm not going to deep dive into how to integrate OpenLayers with React. You can easily find that on my newsletter, and also feel free to subscribe because I keep on adding lot of different GIS related videos and blogs on this newsletter, and here you can find the article of how to add OpenLayers map in React. I will also paste this URL in the description. But for this particular video, we are going to still use Node but not a JavaScript framework. Remember that if you are using vanilla JavaScript, everything that we are going to do here will still work. Now I will simply head over to the quick start guide and I will create this package. So I will simply open my terminal, go to desktop, and I will create my app with my app name. I will go inside my folder and I will simply do npm start. If I head over to this URL, you can see that we have a map on our web app, and this is obviously a interactive map, which means that we can pan through the map, we can scroll in, scroll out, and we can also see a base map. Now this base map is again open source base map, which comes from OpenStreetMap. Now let me show you the code that we have created using this npm package. I will stop it for now and open it in my code editor, and I will start it again. For us, the most important file is main.js. Before moving into that, we will simply go to package.js and we will see that we are using dependency of OpenLayers and obviously the latest version. Now let's move toward understanding the logic behind building a map. And this is going to be true even if you're on npm package or even if you're using vanilla JavaScript. If you are using vanilla JavaScript, I would highly recommend you to check out version 4.6. All the documentation, all the examples, everything here is actually for vanilla JavaScript. So uh, if I go down here to 4.6 and if I go to docs, quick start, you will see that we are simply importing a CDN package and then we are using that. So this example is still valid. But if you pay closer attention to this code, here you will see that we are initiating a map object and then we are doing something. And even if I open our main.js, here we are initiating a map constant and then we are doing something in it. Now this something is going to be same, doesn't matter if you are going to use vanilla or node.js. But now we just have to understand what all things means in this particular map object. Before moving into that, I would just like to give you a short introduction to different types of data sets that we have in GIS. So I will simply head over to natural earth data just to give you a brief idea. And I'm pretty sure that once you see this, you will understand what I'm talking about. So in GIS, we basically have two types of data. One is raster data and one is vector data. Now, vector data is something that you can store in your database. Technically, you can also store raster, but you're not supposed to do that. Vector is generally a data where you have actual location information. So for example, if I download this countries file or if I download this line, and I will also download a point file. So here I have downloaded three different types of points, and let me check if I have QGIS. QGIS is again a software, you don't need to worry about it right now. If I open this file, you will see that all the data that we have over here is actually a point data. These are all the populated places or famous places, cities on the earth. And this data is represented by point because we are simply taking latitude and longitude of the center of the city and creating a point out of it. Second data type that we have is line. If I zoom here, and if I simply turn this off, you will see that these are all lines. Now these are boundary dispute lines, I believe, but obviously you can understand that we are passing the data as a lines and this is no longer simply just a point but a line. And finally we have polygon, which is, as the name suggests, it's a polygon data. And finally, we also have raster data, which as I mentioned earlier is a image format data. So I can simply download any raster, let's say natural earth, and I can show you over here. So the map that we see over here can also be considered as raster. If I now simply open this, I will simply grab this TIFF file and here you go. So this is a raster image. So this is an image. And with OpenLayers, we can add all these different types of data in our map. So I just wanted to give you a brief idea regarding different types of data sets that we generally play with. Now these data sets can be stored in something like Postgres using a package known as PostGIS. If you are going to work a lot with the mapping data, I would highly recommend you to check out more about PostGIS, which is a brilliant way of storing geolocation data in our Postgres database. Now let's try to understand this map object. So I'm not going to actually walk you through the import. I think that is self-explanatory. But now let's try to understand more about this map object. So whenever we want to initiate a map on our website, First thing on a HTML part that we have to do is we have to add a div with any ID. Here I am adding ID as a map, but this is totally up to you. The reason why this ID is so important is because we use this ID as a target for our map object. So if I decide to switch it to map 3, and again I will also make sure that in my style.css I use style for map3 id, and if I head back to my application, you will see that we are getting a blank screen. If I go to inspect, you will see that nothing is over here. But now if I use the same id in my index.html file as well, that is map3, here you can see that we are getting map again. So this is what the target is. Target is basically the div that you want to attach your map to. Obviously when you will use something like React, you will have to use a reference, but ultimately this is the way we have to do that. Next we have is the array of layer. I'm actually going to explain array of layer at last. View defines that what is the lat long, or what is the location, and what is the zoom level that you want your map to start with. So for example, I have 0 0 over here, and by default OpenLayers uses coordinate system EPSG 3857. If you are not sure about what is that, I would recommend you to check out this website epsg.io. Here you can get information about different coordinate systems used for different places. Generally 3857 and 4326, which is a lat long, is worldwide famous. But if you are working with a particular country and if you want maximum accuracy, then you can always refer to the coordinate system of that particular country. So for example, I can do something like 32643, which is for specifically for Indian region. And if I use this, I will know that okay, whatever coordinates that I'm passing, those are very accurate. But generally 3857 and 4326 are used worldwide, and both of them are supported by default by OpenLayers. So if I add projection as EPSG 4326, now if I head back to my map, you will see that this will still work. But if I pass something like 32643, you will see that we'll get a blank message. This is because 32643 is not by default available, but there is way you can add this. Now let's try to understand the OL view. So as I said, in view we will pass projection, center and zoom. If I pass center as something like 18,71, so this is, and let's say if I pass zoom as 12, now you will see that we are zooming at a different location. If I pass it as 71,18, we are at the correct location, because OpenLayers take data based on longitude and latitude. This becomes a confusing topic for a lot of people. For OpenLayers, it works with longitude and latitude. If you use something like Google Maps, they will work with latitude and longitude. So this is something that we have to keep in mind when we work with different types of such APIs. So here you can see that we are zooming somewhere in India. Now finally, before moving into layers, I would like to tell you that how do I know that I can pass projection or I can pass center, or even for my map object, I can pass target or view. For this, we will refer to the documentation of OpenLayers. And believe me that this is the place that I use a lot whenever I am working with OpenLayers. The reason being that if I understand how to read this documentation, I never have to worry about remembering things. If I head back to OL/map, if I head to OL/map, you will see that all the things, all the options that I can pass to my new map object are available over here. So you can see that we can pass controls, interaction, layers, overlays, target and view. Now what all things you can pass in view, you can simply click over here and you will understand what all things you can pass with view. We can pass center, constraint rotation, enable rotation, extent, maximum resolution, maximum zoom, minimum zoom, things like that. So I would highly recommend that whenever you will work with OpenLayers for anything, let it be for view or for layer or for map, always read the documentation in order to understand it in depth. Finally, the last and most important thing that we need to understand is the layers. Layers are actually going to be the data that you want to display on the front end. For example, over here, we are adding a new tile layer where the source is OSM. So as I said, our base map is coming from OpenStreetMap. And it is so common that there is a source available in OpenLayers for just this. Now again, to understand more about it, I can simply search for OSM and it will take me to the OL source OSM. Now here again I can pass different things such as attribution, cache size, maximum zoom, URL and things like that. This is totally up to me that what all things I want to pass. Another thing that I would like you to always visit is the example page. OpenLayers has more than 230 examples available and these are pretty much useful for every type of problem that you are going to face. For example, if we generally work with some sort of APIs, chances are pretty high that we will get our data in a GeoJSON format. GeoJSON is again like a JSON, but it is created, the format is in such a way that it can be read by any GIS software and it will the software will understand what all the software will basically understand what are coordinates. So for example, if I add some markers over here, you can see that our GeoJSON is created. I will simply save this GeoJSON. And now for me to understand how to use this GeoJSON, I can always go back to OpenLayers example and try to understand how to add GeoJSON. So here you can see that we have example of how to create a GeoJSON and we can always refer to these examples to understand how to create things in OpenLayers. So I will copy this for now. I will go to my code and I will paste it. Now I will have to be sure that my target is map 3 because we were using map 3, right? Perfect. And now what I will do is, instead of using this GeoJSON in the example, what I will do is I will create my own GeoJSON. So I have added some points. Now I will add some line. And finally, I will add some polygons as well. Perfect. I will simply copy this data and I will replace this data. And remember that our data is in EPSG 4326, which is for latitude and longitude. And that is why we will have to add that in our projection. I will set some center that we will understand. All right. Now what exactly we did? Here we are creating a style which tells us that for a point we want a radius of 5, we don't want any fill and the stroke should be of color red and width 1. Similar to that, we are creating all the styles for different types of geometries. So for point, we are using this style. For line string, we are creating a style where the stroke is green color. For multi-line string, again green color. We don't have multi-point, multi-polygon, so I can simply delete all this. And for polygon, we want a stroke of color blue and we want line dash. So I can actually make it like 4, 2, which means we want line of 4 pixels, then a gap of 2 pixels and again a line of 4 pixels like that, and width is 3. So let me make it 10 so that it's much more clear. For fill, we want RGBA of color blue and opacity as 0.1. Just like that, we can create our styles in OpenLayers and assign that function to our layer. So that what we will do is we will check the type of geometry and based on the type of geometry, we will style our data. Finally, we are adding our data and notice that now we are creating a vector source. Earlier, it was a tile source because as I said, raster data can be loaded as tile or image. but vector data needs to be loaded as vector. So we are creating a vector source where features are coming from GeoJSON. So GeoJSON is a format. Just like GeoJSON, OpenLayer supports KML formats, MVT formats, and here we are reading this GeoJSON object. We are not adding anything, and then based on source, we are creating a layer. Now this is again a pattern that you will see. In every layer, we will have a layer inside which we will have source, and then this source can be something like as simple as new OSM, or it can be something like this where we have a source and source itself will also have some options attached to it. This totally depends upon the type of source. And finally we are also adding that function over here. Now what I will do is I will add this layer on my map, and once I save this, head back to my application, and here you can see that we got our data. We got the polygons with the exact dash thing that we mentioned. We got a line where the color is green, and we got points with the radius as 5 and color as red. So this is exactly how we use OpenLayers. We use the combination of documentation and the examples available. I would highly recommend you guys to check out these examples. And if you're interested to learn more about OpenLayers, I would recommend you to check out my playlist on OpenLayers on my YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe because I keep on adding GIS related videos. And I hope that I made you excited about OpenLayers. There are several possibilities with OpenLayers that you can do. You can add pop-ups, and there you go. So you can simply add pop-ups with the data that you want. You can add overlay images. So if you have some sort of image that you want to overlay, you can do that. You can also check out, you can also add static images like this. And you can also do analysis using third-party libraries like turf.js. So here what we are doing is we are loading this GeoJSON, and at every 200 meter we are adding this circle. So this is possible using this is possible using third-party library known as turf.js. Again, there are tons of possibilities and it's impossible to cover everything under 25 minutes. But I hope I have given you just the beginning, just the taste of how OpenLayer works, and hopefully for your next project, you will use OpenLayers as your starter mapping kit. Thank you.